What's up, guys? Welcome back to Goat Rodeo Gaming. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to build a realistic rail yard and the different types of rail yards you can make, kind of based on what you're going to use it for, what you're going for, and along the way, I'll probably show you a few tips of how to make, the the rail yard look straight, look professional, not to have wonky track or this and that. So, yeah, welcome back. If you didn't know, former Union Pacific Conductor. Just have to throw that out there because it'll probably be somewhere on the thumbnail. So we're starting off here. Built myself a roundhouse. Kind of got the idea from a public server. I saw that they kind of made some buildings in general with this concept. I did it a little bit differently. So, yeah, got ourselves a roundhouse. So, if you want to know how to do this, how to build this, and what I did to do it, check out our last video, which you can find on our channel. Check out our Railroads Online playlist. So, yeah, turned out pretty well. Um, Seemed like the best covering I could use was the deck track for bridges. So, but anyways, let's get after it. So first I'm going to use the example of our hump yard, and then I will build some smaller examples. So the first kind of rail yard you can have, and it depends on your purpose for it, is I guess what they used to call a shunt yard, which I've seen people refer to in this game. Or more in the modern day, if you have a bunch of industries in one location, you'll just have a more basic yard like this, which is a 3, 4 track, maybe even 5 track yard. Real basic. This could be your main line, or you can make this into a siding. So your main line would then run through right here. Okay. So this is what you call your lead right here. This is a yard lead. And what it means is that this is where your tracks branch off. This is where the switches are. I'm not sure how it got the name lead, but that's just kind of the slang that we used at the railroad. Maybe it's because it leads you into the yard or the different yard tracks. So this would be your basic run-of-the-mill yard. So this would be good for storage. This would be good for dropping cars. Um, where'd that track go? That's a glitch. Anyways, this would be more of your basic, yeah, just yard in general. Another kind of yard you can do is you can have piggyback tracks, which is where, let's say you have 4 tracks, but they don't have a lead on the other side. So here's a lead right here, and then they come back together on the other side where the lead closes back down to 1 track. Okay, so piggyback tracks is where they're all spur tracks, which means they all dead end. So they would all look like this. So it's only used, you can only use it to shove into. This is good for storage. Okay, this would be quick and easy depending on where you have it. Like if you wanted to have like this piggyback yard by the freight house, that'd be good because let's say the freight house track is this one all the way to the right. You can come out and hey, you want to run something else now. You pull past, line the switch, shove in, tie a couple brakes, drop the cars, come back out, and go into another track, pick up your coal, come back out with that, and get going. So it'd be good if you're running unit trains, which are just trains where you're only hauling one commodity, whether it be lumber, whether it be logs, iron, steel, all that stuff. So that's another idea. Okay, with this yard, I made a hump yard. So hump yards, they're different, right? Because it's all based around bringing in cars, humping them, and then building new trains with them. So in order for this to run successfully, you need a receiving yard, you need a departure yard, and you need the hump yard. Okay, so this is my receiving yard right here. So I came in off the main down here, got its own lead. See how I separated all these? Now it looks a lot nicer and it's realistic if you separate your yards a little bit too, because then you can kind of see what's going on. It looks good, it looks realistic, and it's useful. So this is the lead that you could call for the receiving yard. So you pull in, drop your cars, then another job can pull them out, and then you hump them into the bowl. Here's the hump yard, and you can see that right here. I made a nice bowl, so when you hump them down, they don't roll out. This one actually, this switch is against it, so it hit it so lightly that it actually rolled back, and that's where it's at right now. So that was pretty cool. Okay, so then you pull the cars out of the hump that you want to use, and you start forming a train. And you shove those in here, keep shoving them in, couple them up, put an outbound engine on it, and there you go. So that's one type of yard. Now, this kind of yard probably isn't too applicable for this game at the moment, especially if you're running solo. So, if I were you and I were running solo, then I would make your traditional yard like this, where you have 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks, however many you want, where you can kind of drop cars, pick up other ones, right? You have maybe one track is coal cars, one track is for the lumber mill, one track is steak cars, so on, so on. Okay. Now, how I designed this yard is I designed it to where there's multiple ways to enter it and exit it in multiple different directions. Okay. Another thing that's nice if you're running with multiple people is you have something like this. This is a switching lead. So basically, instead of having, let's say you pull out 10 cars from the bowl, is the hump yard, okay? So instead of coming out on the main and occupying the main track, you can come out on this switching lead. Pull out, somebody can line this whatever switch back here to go to whatever track, and then you back up. Meanwhile, people could be running by back and forth all day, and you're not affecting the traffic at all. Come over here. I made this yard entrance. It's kind of like a midway through the yard entrance. So it just connects out to the main line. It's just another way to come in or come out. It's probably not very useful, but options are nice. Okay? Options are nice. If you build your yard correctly and you give yourself options, it makes life a lot easier. This is basically like a, I forget the name you would call it, but it's basically a shortcut through the yard. So if you're running light power, so you just have an engine and you're coming through the yard, this is a good way to get through the yard quickly without having to bother with all these switches. Because you might want to pull a unit out of the roundhouse, come through, and then start switching, start pulling out of the bowl, start building a new train, right? It's just a nice little shortcut through the yard. So, we'll come out this way. I personally started doing this. I think it looks a lot better. Having a roadbed under switch stands, whether it be just the dirt or the stone like this. So then on this side, you can see the receiving yard comes back together, which then forms to this track, and it all just kind of conjoins. I really like this setup because if you want to go to the roundhouse or you want to come out of the roundhouse, you can get to any section of the yard very easily. Now once again, I have another switching lead right here. This track goes out to the main line. So I built another switching lead so we don't have to mess with that. Let's say you come out of the receiving yard this way, you come into here, okay, you pull it all the way in. Well, now maybe you have some other people on your server, they're coming in with the train, so now they can go into the receiving yard, and then now you can start humping. So it just kind of clears everything up, you know. Now the location of the roundhouse is important as well. You want the roundhouse to be in a location that's easily accessible to all parts of your yard. Okay, so like I just kind of talked about a minute ago, I can pull out, I can go into any one of the yards, I can go straight to the hump, go to the receiving yard, I can go to the shortcut, I can go to the departure yard. So super easy, and it's just a smart way to do it. Last thing I'll show you when it comes to this yard, and then I'll start actually laying some switches down just for your viewing so you can get a better idea. So this is my main. It comes straight through and it runs around that way. So on this end of the yard, I wanted to make sure that we could come in and go back out. So we basically can turn the direction of the locomotive around along with the train. Okay? Options. Like I was saying, options are nice. I could have just had an exit going that way, and then you come in, and then you go that way. But what if I want to come in this way? You know, there might be a time where that makes sense. So I made a Y right here for exiting and entering the yard on what we'll call the south side. Okay, so if you want to go north, you can come out this way. If you want to go south, you can come out this way. Go down to the oil refinery and all that good stuff. Okay, here's the end of my spur track. This was a great idea that the other half of Goat Rodeo Gaming came up with. So I have not tested if these work or not, but I believe they do. So, oh, I think I wanted to say something else, but I can't remember. Yeah, it's basically all about options. Okay, so now we'll make a little demonstration right here. There's a few little tips that I like to do. We're gonna go relatively straight. We're just gonna lay a couple switches down, and then we'll tie it in at the other end. Excuse me for clearing my throat. Got a little bit of a cold at the moment, so bear with me. So now we're gonna lay one more, but we're not gonna use this last switch. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Oh, I messed that one up. That should be an outward facing switch. Okay, another tip for realism and really for practicality. Okay, have all your switches on the same side. In real life, this makes a huge difference, man. So as long as there aren't another track fouling the switch stand, when I mean fouling, I mean in the way, basically. So I'm going to want to select these switches because it looks more professional that way, and it is more realistic because this is what they do. And it's easier if you need to align all these things. They're all on the same side, they're all facing the same direction, right? You're most likely going to be coming this way, so it's easiest to do that way. Instead, if you're coming from the opposite side, which this is the back side of the switch, so it's a little harder to flip sometimes. At least in this game, it kind of is a little glitchy. So easy. Alright. So now with the track. Now, a couple things you can do. I'm sure most of you know by now that you want to lay a straight track. You first got to line up this first one pretty close. And then you can push left Alt and just snap it. Okay. Now, This is great for speed. If you're not trying to spend all day building track, well, let's be honest, it's not something we really want to do. But you don't want to have crappy track either. Okay, something I like to do personally is I like to use these crossovers, because then I know for sure that it's straight. Okay, there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to be straight. It's going to have the same spacing. Okay, I like that. I like having the spacing that they have in this game, right? If you're walking in between cars, it definitely looks a lot more realistic. We're going to come down here quite a ways. This might take a little while. I don't know why it's making the switch stand sound every time I lay a crossover, but whatever. Only new. They didn't do that time. How about that? So I'm just going to make these tracks short and sweet, but I want to make sure that they have enough room to lay a couple more switches coming back to meet up with those ones. If you want to know where I built this map, or this yard, it's right here, kind of in this little valley. There's a hump to the left of the freight yard. This is a pretty good spot. I think down by the ironworks or before the oil field, that's another good spot. Maybe in between the logging camp and the sawmill, like right in the center there would be another good spot. But if you're going to build a good sized yard like this, you definitely need to uh, go scope out a flat spot. So, oh yeah, I love when this happens. Anybody else have problems deleting crossovers? Come on, bud. There we go. So yeah, you're gonna need some room. Okay. So we're just kind of doing our thing. It just looks so much better if you can build it, make it look professional. It just looks so much cooler. You know what I mean? A lot of things is just for looks. If you don't care about looks, then don't do this. Just take my advice on how to build a rail yard in the first place. Another thing you can do is there's plenty of maps out there of existing rail yards. You can Google it, and you know, they don't have to be as extreme as they are, because obviously modern day rail yards are pretty big, but um, it'd be a good reference to kind of base your idea around. So, just an idea for you guys. Okay, so see what I did. I laid more than enough, I felt, and then I leave the last one because we're still in a perfect straight line. And I do this because it's hard to connect these things. I can't connect them from that other end. So instead of eyeballing it and trying to get it right, I know it's right. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to delete this first one because I don't need it anymore. And yeah, we'll just leave that just in case. Now, look how I place my switches, right? The switches on that side are on the lead side, which is what I did here. So now we'll make sure that we do the same thing again. Okay, got that one, and then we'll do another one, and you'll see where I'm going with this. I will not connect these two tracks. I'm just using it as a template, really. So, in order to save time, we don't need to lay this second track. It's pretty obvious. If you just do what I'm doing right here, it's going to turn out flawless, literally. So we're going to lay this. See if I can lay one more. Yep, that worked. Okay. Now, I'm going to delete this switch. Blam. Blam. Okay, so the reason why I'm doing this, guys, is this last track in the yard, so the last track on the switching lead on both sides, it's It's the hardest one to lay. It's the hardest one to get straight. It's the hardest one to get the spacing correct. All that stuff. Now the reason why I did this is because I know exactly where it needs to be now to look good. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to extend probably just one more on both the switch, both sides, just because, you know, getting a curve with this kind of radius would probably be pretty hard to do. So we're going to add one more there. We're going to add one more on this side. Okay, so now we have a better curve radius to work with. So I'm going to try not to botch this too bad. So I like being very careful with my curve track. I like it looking good. I like my stuff to look legit. And sometimes, like what I'm doing right now, it takes a few tries. So once again, if you're not trying to spend all day on track, then don't. But I personally like my track to look good. And I think it does impact how the trains run. You know, the smoother track you have, I think the better it's going to be overall. So that was basic, and it probably could be better, but that looks pretty good. It's shifted to the right a little bit, so if I were to redo this, I'd start a little bit more to the right, and I'd swing more out until right there. So it's not perfect. This is something I would do over again, even though it's pretty minimal. We can tell it kind of sinks back into the right a little bit. So that's the reason why the reason. I guess you can say that's a good way to finish off your last track is you just use another switch, you take it out, then you're left with this, and you can fill in the blank. So this would be a good basic yard that you can use in most situations, okay? Make it as long or as wide as you want, doesn't matter. So now I will show you, I guess, piggyback yard. Oh, I guess I will lay this track. Why not? Got nothing but time. It's early in the morning, so I sound kind of unenthused in my videos. It's because I typically record them about 5 o'clock in the morning. That's when I got my free time. So, you look at a lot of intermodal facilities. Um, you have the shops down in East LA, I believe it's called. This is what a lot of their yards consist of. Okay, so now we're going to delete these suckers right here. Yes, if you want to delete the crossovers, hit them at the ties. That seems to work. Learn something new every day, guys. And then if you want to delete these, hit the rail. So this would be like your piggyback yard, like I was explaining earlier. Have a little where you can just kind of shove in, pull back out. So you just want to make sure with this yard that you're good to come in from just that side, no matter what. So if you have a main line that's running through like this and it goes a ways and it goes around that way like mine goes a ways, you know, you might want to do your conventional little yard and have the lead like I just built so you can come off and then it can connect to the main. Or this would be good at, like, you know, maybe one of the mines since you can only come in from one direction. Or like I said, by the freight house. You know what we did is we built a loop. So you come in, you loop around, and then you come into the freight house, and then you go back out the way we came in, basically. But it's like a balloon loop. So this would be good for maybe that, because then you can pick up and drop off cars if you want to change what train you're running right at the freight house. So let's say the balloon comes off that live mine, so you kind of circle around, the freight house is right there. You can pull past and load, and then you just pull up, shove in, pull back out, shove it in the other track, pick up those cars, and then boom, you're off to the races. So that's a good situation where this might work. There was something else I wanted to cover, but I can't remember at the moment. I'll just leave this here for now. That's a big waste of time. So if you want to make a more complicated yard, right? Let's say like this one. This is a very, very small rendition of. This is a very, very small rendition of an actual hump yard. Okay, 4 bowl tracks, 4 departure tracks, 4 receiving tracks. That in itself isn't realistic, but what are the odds of you needing 10 tracks, 10 tracks, 10 tracks? Right now not very high. That would certainly be fun to build just for the hell of it, but I guess the last thing I could show you is how to build your yard leads if you want to section your yard, meaning it's separated. I'll show this example to you. How it could be easy to separate your tracks. So we'll go on down here. Go down to this switch. Okay. So the first thing I did is came off of this. I laid this straight track and I put in this left-hand switch. Okay. So I didn't know which one I wanted. I was just kind of just rolling with it, just kind of winging it. But I knew, okay, if I want to separate it, I'm going to put a left-hand switch, and then these switches are all going to go to the left. So this yard lead's going to go to the left. Okay. Then I knew, okay, well the other portion of the yard, I want a switch to go to the right. And off of that, I obviously kind of conjoined the receiving yard lead to this last bowl track just to kind of save some room. I didn't want to have these things too spaced out to where it's like departure yard's way over there, bowls right here, receiving yard's way over there, because then you're just walking around a whole bunch and it takes a lot longer to move your locomotive around the yard, to move your cars around the yard. You want it to be kind of separated, but not too much, because then if it was way over here and way over here, that's going to take 5 times as long to get your locomotive out to switch. You want it uniform. So, so what I do here, all switches go to the right. Departure yard, all went to the left. This switching lead goes to the right. Okay. Now, you can't go all to the left sometimes. So then I put this switch to the left, and then I put another switch right after it to give me another track. And if I ever want to have a 5th track, boom, here I go. And then all I would do is I'd turn this back to the right and follow it all around. Or I could add a 6th track and just keep doing that. Which I would add this switch anyways, so I can get that straight track perfect like I did over there in that example yard that I built. So same thing over here. Kind of split the bowl in half in a sense. We have a switch, and I went back this way, but the, the majority of the bowl put a left-hand switch and made these go to the right, kind of like the receiving yard. So you have some separation, but we're close, and you can clearly tell what's what. And this is what a real rail yard looks like in most cases. You can tell what is what because in the real world, they tell you, let's say the yard master, he tells you go to this lead, go to the 30 lead, and the 30 lead can be this lead. Go to the 30 lead and go in there and pick up a car and track 31. Okay, so you know which way you have to come in because these tracks can go all the way across, and you can have another switch coming to the left and then a lead going to the right, which fills the rest of these tracks. So a lot of these leads and stuff, they're used also for instruction to know where you need to go. And for fun on this lead, I just kind of use another switch, right? Because I wanted this track to be perfect too. But I actually wanted to use this switch. I didn't want to just delete it, make it curve. So I made a little pocket. So this could be, let's say, a locomotive pocket. Okay, so you can sit your power in here. Maybe your outbound power, right? You have your yard power you're switching with. Somebody pulls up your outbound power, stores it in here until the switch is over. Then you can pull out, shink, put it right in the front. So this is what you would call a pocket. It's just kind of a track that it's not a shortcut like over there, but it's a place where you can store something. Okay, I built this little spur track right here because I figured, hey, I'll probably be using like a Betsy to bring out these cars. When I'm done and I stuff them in there, I want to have a space to store the locomotive down here. I don't want to have to go all the way back to the roundhouse, right? That's wasted energy, wasted time. So you could store a Betsy in here or one of the smaller engines. Keep it here until you're ready to start building your trains. And if you notice on that spur, or sorry, the switching lead down there next to the main, I put a water tower and the wood. So this side of the yard is self-sufficient with these steam engines. Okay, and I need to do the same thing at the other side of the yard. I just haven't done it yet. Now another thing is you want to make sure that the direction of the tracks isn't going to conflict with the direction of the other sections of the yard. Okay, if I, let's say, did a switching lead where this came off to the left and I went that way, well then I would run into these tracks. I wouldn't have room. Same with these. Now the reason why I turn these tracks to the right to go straight down that way is because of the land. Now I could fill this in with all the ballast in the world, all the roadbed in the world, but I didn't want to do that. So I turned these tracks and I ran them straight down. And I didn't want to get too far from the main as well. I kind of wanted to parallel the main. My main track starts curving to the left right here, so then I had my yard kind of bottle up right here and curve back to the left. So another tip is lay your tracks parallel to one another, or at least give them a little bit of room, okay? Because that's another reason for wanting to give yourself some space with these different sections of the yard, is it allows you some wiggle room. Because a lot of this stuff you lay on the fly, and a lot of it's trial and error. It took me a while to build the bowl. I have a video on how I built this hump yard, so go check that out. You want to see how I did this exactly. And so yeah, you want to give yourself some wiggle room, right? Like I was able to kind of fit this track in. I could always take this out, move this switch back all the way down to here, and I could have a 6-track receiving yard, you know? And then like I showed on the other side, I could add another track or two to this side. I could move this switch back. Probably a good switch length. Have some more room. So it's all about just giving yourself room, guys. Giving yourself some room so you can make some errors. So I think this kind of concludes this video. I hope I didn't waste your time, and I hope you kind of learned something from this. I mean, it's nothing scientific. It's probably stuff that maybe you haven't heard before, or you haven't seen, or maybe someone else has explained, but just kind of want to give you my 2 cents. And yeah, I hope this helped. What I what I'll add real quickly to the end is if you're building a bowl, I started at a 1% grade for a section and then went to 2%. Okay, and then I rounded off to 1% and then kind of rounded the hill to give it that natural kind of flow look. Obviously, that didn't really work right here. It's a little peaky, but a 2% grade for about two switch lengths, right? One, then there's a second switch down there. Two, all the way to the bottom. That seemed to work perfectly. You might want to do a little longer of a grade for the hump if you have a longer bowl. So they might have to roll a longer distance. You might have to do a little bit bigger. That seemed to work really good. On the other side, I did the same thing. Not as long as a hump, but enough to cause the cars to roll up and then roll back down to the bowl. So, anyways, check out my video on how I built this. Check out my video on me testing this. I have a video on me testing it so you can see that it works. Check out my video on the roundhouse. And if you'd like to see something else with track work, yard building, just whatever. Shoot me a comment of what you would like to see, and then maybe I can play around with it and try to figure out the best way to do it in the meantime. So make sure to join our Discord. We got a Discord now. So come join us, hang out. We just kind of share a bunch of memes and nothing special, but yeah, I could I put in some of my pictures I took from the railroad myself. Those are kind of cool. Just anything else, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. That's a big one. The more this channel grows, definitely the more time and effort I'm going to be putting into it. I want to make great content for you guys. If you haven't checked out my other videos on other railroad games, I do Transport Fever 2, where I make custom maps. I do Trains the New Era, where I have custom content. I made the West Colton Hump Yard, which is my old yard that I used to work in. Just go check that out. I also make some custom locomotives for Trains the New Era, or just the train series in general. So go on the Goat Radio Gaming Facebook page where you can view those. So, till next time, thanks guys. We'll see you later.